Ah, the Earth-like planet in the middle of a snowstorm. It's good to be back. Hello, folks. I'm Brian, aka Duke Skylover. Let me explain what's going on in this episode. When I first streamed this episode, something went wrong with the audio, and I didn't get my voiceover. So I was able to record all of the video and everything, and all the sound effects and the music and everything, but I didn't get my own audio. So it's lost to time. So I'm going back and re-editing this episode so that you can at least see what had happened during this time, and cutting out all the boring parts and just trying to talk through a little bit of what I was probably thinking at the time. So if you're coming back and watching this, from the beginning, if you're watching all the episodes for some reason, this is technically episode 4, but I'm actually going back and doing this sometime around episode 11 or 12. So it's a bit of a nice blast from the past for me. The ship is spoiler alert, it does get done and we do leave this planet, but for the time being, we're back here. We're waiting for refineries to get built. We're going to start building out more of the structure of this ship, and by the end, we're going to have like a roof and stuff like that. So we've got cargo containers, we've got the O2 generator, we've got assemblers, we've got refineries getting put together. We've got the gyros here. They're on this upgrade platform thing that boosts their power. That's from a mod. AQD, upgradable gyroscopes or something like that. So anyway, that's a quick tour of the ship as is. At the moment, it's basically just a kind of a ship-shaped platform with a bunch of stuff sitting on top of it. You can see the hydrogen tanks there at the back. And you can see the build and repair flying back and forth, trying to get steel plates into the refineries there. So yeah, there's a lot to do in this episode. We're going to kind of fast forward through a lot of it. Hopefully this snowstorm goes away soon, because it is kind of it's very ethereal. It's moody, but it does make it kind of difficult to see things from time to time, especially the sun. So yeah, let's get to it. So one of the first things we're going to be adding onto the ship here today is landing gear. Landing gear is an interesting one because I wanted to be able to land on this platform, and I wanted to be able to put this platform on any planet that I went to. Just blueprint this platform essentially with the connector sticking up, and then the landing gear would just be perfectly spaced already to be able to just land on that platform, line up with the connector, and we're good to go. So one thing I realized part of the way through building the ship is that it's only connected to the ground, like to the grid, in one spot. It's connected with just a row of supports right behind the connector. So I decided to put some steel plates here just to give it a second connection point in case I accidentally ground down the other spot behind the connector there. So, these things right there, if those go away, the ship disconnects from the grid entirely. Like, it wouldn't fall down because the landing gear is there and the connector's there, but it would become a second separate grid. Alright, so it wouldn't exactly fall down, but it wouldn't be connected anymore, which makes my scripts a little bit more difficult to deal with. So, at this point, we are out of iron, and we need to figure out what's going on with that. So the mining ship, the little PAM-controlled miner, the Cygna, is out getting iron. At first, it's looking like it's filling up with nickel, because it has to go through like a nickel vein before it hits the iron. I was going to call it back and have it go somewhere else, but as you can see, it's starting to fill up with iron again. It's hit the iron portion, so I'm going to kind of let it go and do its own thing for a bit. And then once it gets enough iron, I really need that iron to be able to do anything else, so I'm using the PAM controller to recall the miner so I can get a hold of that sweet iron ore so I can continue building the ship. The PAM remote control script is pretty sweet, because you can just tell it to fly on home, come onto the home position, and it'll begin backing out and return. And so as you can see, it just barely misses the wind turbines whenever it comes back. And that's going to play a little role in what we're going to do here briefly. But now that it's back, we should hear the refineries kick back on, and we should start seeing the build and repair starting to weld up the ship some more. There you go, now you can hear it. So yeah, so what we're going to do is take that one tower there with the wind turbine that it always has to pass by, we're going to get rid of that and instead build out like a wind farm in this direction. So I'm measuring out how far we need to go in between each one for optimal clearance. And I believe it's 4 blocks in between. And that way we'll get optimal wind clearance between each of these. Now they can vertically stack, and so it doesn't matter how high they go. Like the wind clearance is fine vertically. It just needs to be horizontally spaced out. So yeah, I'm using interior blocks to save a little bit on iron, and we're going to build out a bit of a wind farm here with a couple of new towers with lights on them and everything. So I like using these giant poles because you can plop down one single component and get an entire pole out of it. I didn't want to just use spotlights. These are downward facing spotlights. There's like 4 spotlights on one of these. I didn't want to just use one of those on every single pole, so instead I'm putting these, there's little mounting points on those, and it'll let me put some interior lights on the side. So I went back and forth about which type of wind turbine, and I ended up using these modded wind turbines that give you a decent amount of power for a single wind turbine, and it would be enough for us to fill up all of our batteries quickly so we can get the heck out of here. And then we're going to get rid of this one. We're going to keep the original wind tower there, but we're going to get rid of the other one. So it gets difficult to track everything that we need to do. Here it's hard for me to remember all the things that we need to do, so I created this LCD that is my to-do list. Once I learn how to spell to-do list, we start filling this up with all the stuff that we need to do, including scripts and everything. And so this to-do list, we come back to it periodically, and I check things off as I get them done. So now the weather's cleared up and the wind turbines are looking pretty good there. So the whole purpose of the wind turbines was to be able to generate power to charge a bunch of batteries on the ship. I decided to go with these warfare batteries because they look good from the bottom, and you can maybe kind of see. I'm lining them up so that you can see their indicators from inside of the ship, but from the bottom you won't see anything. And I need to make sure that we move the survival kit from the drop pod onto the ship because I don't have enough silver to be able to make a new survival kit yet. So I want to make sure that we bring the one that I have with me and don't just leave it on the planet. Otherwise, if something goes wrong, I'll respawn back on the planet here. So, don't want to do that. In the future, I'm leaving the back of the ship kind of open here so that we can expand backwards with like a jump drive or whatever we need. And I want to be able to send this ship back out and do a little bit more mining, but before I do that, we need to remove this additional tower just so that it doesn't smack into it. So I am using the build and repair to get rid of it. Just paint each individual piece pink one at a time from top to bottom and let the build and repair grind it down. The reason I'm not painting the entire tower pink to begin with is because if I do that, there's a good chance it's going to grind out the bottom first, and then everything's going to fall down and damage the things below it, which could very well be the miner itself. So we need to get the survival kit up onto the ship. My plan is to move it onto the bridge area, the area that's going to be the bridge. We're just going to surround it with enough thrusters to get it up and moving, thrust in every direction, put a remote control on it, and then I can just sit in it and fly it up onto the ship. Eventually, the plan is to grind away everything but the survival kit and probably the O2 generator so that I can still refill my hydrogen and oxygen from the survival kit. You can just pull them directly out of the O2, and I can refill bottles and stuff directly in it and everything. So this is everything we need to make this minimally flyable, and we're going to move it up onto the ship and then build the bridge around it. So the idea is that it's never going to leave. We're just going to move it, and then once we have enough silver to build a full-size survival kit, we'll build that into the ship and just get rid of this one entirely. So my original pod will just be gone, and its parts will get used for something else. So This is an interesting kind of a fit because I didn't want to destroy a lot of the ship to begin with, a lot of the drop pod, but I did want to kind of fit it in as snugly as possible, just so that there'd be enough room to kind of walk around it, but that it isn't going to bump into stuff or be in the way while I'm trying to build the bridge. And now we're locked. So at the moment there's not enough room to kind of walk around it, but we will take out all of these extra parts, and it will just be a survival kit on a landing gear. Kind of goofy looking, but it does the job it needs to do. And it's nice and light, so it doesn't interfere with flying the ship. I also want to make sure, because I'm going to put another battery on here, like I'm going to have to move the battery, that there's enough power coming in to charge that whole battery. This whole thing will last for a long time on the battery that it has, like a very long time on the battery it has, but I want to move that battery, and I don't want to go through the trouble of detaching it and reattaching it. So I'm putting a new battery on the side, and I'm going to have the old one just discharge into the new one. Since there's a loss of power whenever you do that, I'm putting the solar panel on top to augment that power. It's going to be a really slow transfer, and spoiler alert, we don't bother waiting the whole time. But like I said, these giant batteries last a long time, and you know, they're not gonna run out on me before I find silver. So it's time to start thinking about the airlock situation. As I've said in previous episodes, I want the bridge to be airtight, but the rest of the ship I don't care. It's actually going to be a bit of a pain to make the whole ship airtight. So I put in the mod for the airtight airlock door, and we'll see how that goes. For the sides, I thought briefly about putting the new variant of the airtight hangar door on the side, so that it could just kind of like slide open and closed and be like a larger, a thing that I could fly in and out of. To keep it airtight, it would require a little bit of changing how the sides work, but we're going to try it. We're also going to try a couple of different things here to make the roof look interesting. A lot of what I do is, I'm trying to make this ship functional, but it also needs to be interesting to me. My goal is to get off of this planet, and so I don't want to spend a lot of time greebling and making things look perfect, but at the same time, I do have to use this ship a lot, so I am spending a bit of extra time making it look good, and making it so that when you're walking around on the inside, you can still get to all the stuff, and you're not in the dark and everything. So trying out using some ramps instead of some sloped blocks, 2x1 slope blocks. It's a process going back and forth. Giving up on the ramps for a bit, trying maybe with some 2x1 slope tips. Maybe there's something we could do with this to make things look a little bit more interesting here. I always like the look of these things. These half windowed wall things. The back of the ship is going to give me a lot of trouble throughout the life of this ship. Until I start building out the back, I really don't know what to do with it. Like, nothing really looks good. I do think that these things look good here. I took out the original slopes. These support structure things, these gantry blocks, look really good in the back. Like, it leaves the area open, but still looks like there's some support to it. So, yeah, these window walls, not quite what I was going for, especially because I do want to put a door in the back, and the door is thicker than the window walls, and the opening doors would just clip into them. So, decided to go with a different approach. So this is a little bit better. At least it's a bit of a solid wall from the outside. It's got a door. There's no interesting clipping, but believe me, the back of this ship is going to bother me for a very long time until we eventually just tear it out and start expanding backwards. So these thicker window walls are interesting because they're not full windows. Like they're a little slit of a window in the wall, but they give it at least a little something. I wanted maybe some light to shine in or something. No one's tall enough to see out of there, but it's good enough. But once we expand out the back here, these are all going to go away. So far, it's starting to look pretty good. It's starting to come together. Let's spend a little time building this whole thing up. Alright, so let's test out these hangar doors now that we've got them in place here. It's a very slow opening thing, and I don't like this vertical, tiny little window being sideways there. Not a huge fan. Let's take a look at the other one. Maybe I'll change my mind. And the first thing that I notice is that this door, the little detail on the bottom quarter of it there, is on the opposite side as the other door. It's on the bottom here, and on the other side it's on the top. And that bothers me. It makes me want to just get rid of all these doors entirely. But we could do that after a brief nap to bring the sun back around so I could see what I'm doing. Yeah, these doors aren't going to work. I thought these were going to look good, but I've got a better idea for these doors. So while they're grinding away, because doors take forever to grind away, I'm going to work on building up a little bit of the wall here. Yeah, it's not bad. Little bulkhead door that goes up and comes back down. I think that'll work out really nicely. Although it does move a little slow. So instead of the one block airlock door, I decided I liked the look of these circular doors. They look more like an actual, like what I would expect an airlock to be, even though they're within the ship itself. We'll just use a script to control those. We want to be able to see while we're on the inside, so I'm taking out the interior block that was here, and instead I'm going to put in a modded block that kind of looks like an interior block, but on one side it's got a row of lights. So it is actually a light block that looks like an interior block. That'll give us a bit of a light inside of the airlock, which otherwise would have been like basically pitch dark. Now the ship itself does need power while it's in space, so we're throwing on some of these modded solar panels. Each one of these has the weight and power of 20 solar panels. So it gives us a lot of power, but we also have to be able to lift up into space with it. So now that we got those built on, the ship is starting to look pretty good. It's got a good amount of shape to it. Now we need to start thinking about this interior corridor here. What happens when you're walking inside the ship? One thing you'll note about me is that when I get into the mood, I spend a lot of time trying to match the shapes of blocks, and sometimes it is not to my benefit. Sometimes things end up looking a little bit too wacky, but in this case I think it turned out pretty good. So just like in the airlock, I'm using these modded ramp blocks that have a built-in light. So these are essentially, again, light blocks that just happen to look like ramps, but it means that we have some lights integrated with the ceiling, and I can use the slanted blocks, and I don't have to use flat blocks and then attach lights to them. Alright, now I want to make sure that the roof of the bridge, if I decide to keep it low, that there's enough clearance that I'm not going to run into my own survival kit sitting here. So I'm grinding away a bit of the top armor just so that I can test and make sure that there's enough clearance here. More than likely the bridge roof is going to be 2 blocks tall, but just in case something sticks out here, I don't want that survival kit to be in the way, because I'm not going to be able to move it later. So yeah, perfect fit, very snug, not going to run into any issue. So let's finish up a little bit more of that side armoring on the bridge. Alright, so batteries are on board, and we need to add a build and repair to the ship. So far so good. It's starting to actually sort of look like a ship. The back is all taking shape. There's a roof on board most of the ship. Yeah, looking pretty good. I can stand on these things. I'm not really a huge fan of the shape that's back here. I think I might have to take a look at this a little bit closer and do something else with the roof here, because it is just kind of a flat platform. The solar farm in the background looks pretty cool, though. Yeah, so I want to get a build and repair in here. Luckily, there's a spot right behind the bridge where I can do that. So just checking to make sure that all the sides that I need to be airtight are airtight, and they are indeed. As you can see from the blue from the build info mod, I can just pop this right in the back there, and it will connect directly and maintain that airtight seal with the rest of it. Build and repair complete. Yep, not a huge fan of the back there, but it looks really nice, all welded up so far. Added some ladders to the side, moved the landing gear out of block, so now if I fall out of the ship, I can grab onto those ladders and get back on board. Yeah, I don't like the way this turned out. We're going to redo the roof here and maybe add some sort of, I don't know, anything to make this shape a little bit more interesting. And when I'm in a creative block, I always reach for the 2x1 slope tips. It doesn't always work out. But in this case, at least it breaks up the surface a little bit. Alright. We are getting way more nickel than we should be, or more than we need, and we are getting very little iron, or at least not as much as we need. So I'm taking a quick ride with the miner. This is the autopilot flying me over to the hole where it's been digging. Yeah, I'm not driving it right now. I'm just riding on board while it flies over to the hole. I'm going to check out what's going on in this hole. Are we running out of iron in the hole? Do we need to start looking for a new hole? What's the deal here? Alright, let me hop out. While it's doing its thing there, I'm going to walk down into the hole here and just see what's the deal with the ore in here. Take my miner out just in case I need to detect which ore is which, but you can generally tell which is which. Yeah, so the situation here is basically not that there isn't a lot of iron, but that it's in like kind of a thin band, and so the miner does get to it. It just takes a while to get all the way down through all the stone, but it does eventually hit the iron and collect some. It just takes a while because it's got to get through all that stone. So, top of the ship is looking good. It's all welded up. We have some ramps. I'm not super happy with how the ramps turned out, but yeah, it breaks it up. It's not just steel plate all over the place. This isn't the final paint job for the ship. My plan here is to get to space and then repaint the ship to make it look cooler. I don't want to repaint it on the ground. I want to get to space as fast as I can at this point, and that's definitely coming up soon. This area in the middle here with the 3 conveyors, that's where I'm planning to put weapons, put some guns there, because even though this isn't a combat ship, I do want it to be able to defend itself. We're going to be landing on different places, and we may or may not come under attack from various things, and I may need the ship to be able to shoot back and defend itself while I'm running to the cockpit to get us out of here, kind of a thing. But the plan coming up after this is to build right off of the sides here, to build some engine pods that are going to be all hydrogen, lots of different thrusters, roughly the same amount of thrusters in every direction except forward and back. There's going to be 2 giant ones, forward and back, and then up, down, right, and left will be the same amount of thrusters. Pointing down, I intend to have lots and lots of thrusters, and we'll turn off most of them when we're just flying in space, but we'll have all the bottom ones on to be able to lift the ship when we're coming in and out of the air. So, survival kit is done. Solar panels are done. And we just need to make sure we remember to put those thrusters on. But that'll be next time. Then after we get those thrusters on, we're going to start building out this whole bridge area. Make it look really cool and close this whole thing. Figure out what sorts of additional things we need inside. So that's it, folks. Thanks for taking this quick tour of the ship with me. Sorry about the not being able to see the whole full-length episode. Please feel free to join my stream at any point, twitch.tv/DukeSkylofer. where I'm going to continue this build. And then you can just keep on watching the episodes here to see where we go from here. Thanks for watching.